On the morning of November 29th, 1970, a father took his two young daughters for a hike through the mountains outside Bergen, Norway. The valley they were walking through was called Isdalen. It means ice valley. The locals had another name for it, Dead Valley. They noticed the smell first. Then one of the daughters stepped off the path to see where it was coming from. Among the rocks, she found a hand, charred, black, reaching upward, and connected to the burned remains of a woman that no one, to this day, has ever been able to identify. She had at least 9 different names. She spoke at least 4 languages. This is the story of the Isdal woman. Isdalen sits in the foothills of Ulriken Mountain, the tallest of the 7 mountains that surround Bergen. It is a beautiful place. It is also, historically, a place where people have died. Over the centuries, so many bodies had been found in that valley that locals had given it the nickname Dead Valley. That Sunday morning in 1970, there was nothing unusual about the hike until the smell. When Bergen police arrived at the scene, they found a woman's body lying among the rocks on a remote slope of the valley, well off the main trail. She was almost completely unrecognizable. Surrounding the body were a collection of objects that immediately struck investigators as deeply strange. Jewelry, an umbrella, several small plastic bottles with their labels carefully scraped off, a watch, the remnants of nylon stockings and rubber boots melted from heat, and what appeared to be the burned plastic cover of a passport, not the passport itself. Just the cover. Whatever or whoever had brought her here had made sure any document identifying her was destroyed. The placement and location of the objects surrounding the body was strange. It looked like there had been some kind of ceremony. A ceremony in a valley called Dead Valley with a woman whose face had been burned away and whose name no one knew. At the Bergen railway station, a luggage attendant had noticed 2 suitcases sitting unclaimed in the left luggage area. They had been there for over a week. When he heard about the investigation into the burned woman in the valley, he called the police. The suitcases were opened, and what was inside immediately told investigators that whoever this woman was, she was not a normal tourist. Inside were wigs. Multiple wigs in different colors and styles, sunglasses, several changes of clothing, with every single label cut out, every individual garment tag, every brand marking, every piece of fabric that might tell someone where a piece of clothing had been bought, cut out. Medication, foreign currency from multiple countries, and no identification of any kind. This had taken time. This had been deliberate. This was not the luggage of someone who had simply decided to hike into the Norwegian mountains on a cold November morning. Then, as an officer went through the contents of the suitcase more carefully, he held a pair of sunglasses up to the light. And in the corner of one lens, he found something the woman had perhaps not noticed she'd left behind. A partial fingerprint. It was quickly confirmed to be a match to the Isdal woman. The suitcases were hers. Between March and November 1970, the 8 months before her death, the Isdal woman had stayed at hotels all across Norway, under different names every single time. Genevieve Lancier, Claudia Tilt, Claudia Nilsson, Alexia Zarne Merches, Vera Jarl, Elizabeth Leinhaufer. At least 9 documented aliases, 9 different names across 9 different hotels, and presumably 9 different fake passports, because in 1970, you had to show a passport to check into a hotel in Norway. None of those passports were ever found. Hotel staff who remembered her described a woman who was quiet, well-dressed, traveled alone, and spoke multiple languages fluently: German, English, French, possibly others. She never stayed in one place too long. She always paid in cash. She always moved on before anyone could get to know her. One hotel receptionist remembered her because of something small. The woman had asked very specifically not to have her room cleaned while she was staying there. She didn't want anyone in her room. She didn't want anyone seeing what she kept inside. For 8 months, this woman moved through Norway like a ghost, present enough to leave fingerprints on sunglasses, careful enough that no one knew her real name. The cause of death. The autopsy revealed that the Isdal woman had a significant amount of phenobarbital in her system, sleeping pills, enough to kill her, and she had also been burned. Police officially declared on December 21st, 1970, that the death was a suicide. Several of the investigators who worked that original case admitted quietly that none of them truly believed it was a suicide because the details didn't support it. If she had taken enough sleeping pills to kill herself, she would not have been conscious to set herself on fire. And if she had set herself on fire first, she would not have calmly taken sleeping pills. The sequence made no sense. Then there was the coded message. Found inside one of the suitcases was a small notebook. Inside the notebook was a page of coded writing, numbers and letters arranged in a way that was clearly not random. What they eventually pieced together appeared to be a travel itinerary. Dates, locations, movements, written in a code that suggested she was trained in concealing information, and then there were the bottles found near her body. The labels scraped off every single one. Even in death, even in what police called a suicide, every effort had been made to erase where she came from. Who does that? Who takes the time to remove every label from every bottle they plan to bring to their own death? Someone who was afraid of being identified, or someone who had been made afraid of being identified. Unknown to Bergen police at the time, a second investigation had been quietly launched by a completely different organization, the Norwegian Intelligence Service. A file from December 1970, classified as secret, only released decades later, revealed that the commander of the Norwegian Armed Forces, a man named Onarheim, had examined the Isdal woman's known movements across Norway. His conclusion was chilling. Her travel patterns, the hotels she stayed in, the cities she visited, the timing of her movements across Norway corresponded directly to top-secret trials of a new Norwegian missile system called the Penguin missile. The Penguin was being tested along the Norwegian coast, and the Isdal woman had been in the right cities at exactly the right times to monitor those tests. This was the height of the Cold War. Norway was a NATO member. Was she a spy? Working for who? But some investigators pointed out that her behavior didn't quite match what a trained state intelligence agent would do. She moved too much, changed aliases too frequently. The Isdal woman moved constantly, as if she was running from something as much as she was watching something, or as if someone else was controlling where she went next. Equipment. The case was officially closed in 1970. It was unofficially never closed. In 2016, Norway's national broadcaster NRK launched a major new investigation, a podcast called Death in Ice Valley. Researchers working with isotope analysis equipment. Researchers from the University of Canberra were asked to perform isotope analysis on the Isdal woman's preserved jaw, a technique that reads the chemical composition of teeth to determine where a person grew up. The results narrowed her origins to a specific region along the French-German border. Researchers concluded she likely grew up in Eastern or Central Europe, then moved westward during her adolescence. A woman who may have been displaced by the war, who may have learned multiple languages out of necessity, someone who had practiced from a very young age at not being who she really was. In 2025, a new lead emerged, pointing to possible connections between the Isdal woman and a Swiss banking figure with links to wartime financial networks. The investigation is still active. DNA samples have been extracted and submitted to international databases. No match has ever been returned. She remains unidentified. She was cremated after death and buried in a Bergen churchyard. Her grave marker reads simply, Ukjent Kvinne, unknown woman, 9 names, 4 languages, 8 months of movement across a country. She apparently knew well under identities she had constructed carefully, a coded notebook, scraped off labels, a burned face, and a death that the investigators who worked it, even as they officially ruled it suicide, privately never believed. The most disturbing possibility isn't the spy theory. It isn't the Cold War angle. It isn't even the question of who she was. It's this. Someone knew exactly who she was. Someone knew what she was doing in Norway. Someone knew where she would be on November 29th, 1970. And they made sure that we never would. The Isdal woman has been in that Bergen churchyard for over 50 years. She has a grave. She does not have a name. Subscribe, because the next case goes deeper.